not dealing with AT&T. You're 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 not dealing with
You're not dealing with AT&T. 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 You're not dealing with AT&T.
All right, we are back. Today we have my friend and collaborator Keith Michael on the show, and we're glitching the sci-fi classic Flash Gordon. And Keith is a comedian and musician who makes sound art under the moniker Localhost Not Found, and is part of the comedy variety show Zark TV. So, Keith, how are you doing?
Very well, thanks. How are you?
Doing great, yeah. So what is your kind of relationship with Flash Gordon, and why did you want to see it glitched on the show today?
Well, Flash Gordon is a great movie, and the soundtrack is great. I think we can all agree on that. There are so many great things about it. Many of the samples that we as in 1+1, the two-member group that my friend Carlos and I came up with, we use a lot of Flash Gordon samples in our output, and it's just, I don't know, as kids growing up, I mean, it's a cheesy sci-fi movie that you can laugh at, but you still love to sing the songs. So that's why I chose it, and we do use heavily samples from Flash Gordon.
Yeah, and we're actually planning on making a collaborative video that I'll have coming out the same time of 1+1 God Slot Machine. So I guess that kind of transitions into our next question of how did you get started with music? You talk about Localhost Not Found, and also 1+1, and how did that kind of, so you have your solo stuff and then you have this collaboration stuff, and how did that get started?
Yeah, sorry I wasn't very organized with what I said there, but yeah, so I don't have any music aside from one class in college, electronic music, intro to electronic music class at Ramapo College. Aside from that one class, which really taught me nothing, I have no training in music at all. I, like everyone else, love music. But when I got into college, that was 1994, I met my friend Carlos, and I quickly became involved in the radio station. That was WRPW. It was an AM station at Pace University. I walked in there loving industrial music and heavy metal, and I guess I left that radio station, loving electronic music, and that all happened within a year. I met a lot of friends at that radio station, Carlos included, and I discovered then, 94, New Order, Erasure, Depeche Mode. I mean, I've heard of these bands, but never really listened to them, and I started to fall in love with them. And also at the same time, techno and a lot of electronic dance music at raves. That was all happening, and that was something in college that I went to, and I did. So I quickly latched on to the Orb, and they are probably my favorite group of all time. I think Adventures Beyond the Ultra World was one of my favorite CDs. along with the Orb Live '93, which I think was at Woodstock. So I guess the reason why I liked the Orb so much was because there's so much electronic music at the time. I just didn't even understand. I was so new to it, and I didn't really even know how to dance. So, I'd go to clubs and stuff at Limelight and all these other places, and um, I felt awkward and didn't understand the music so much. But the Orb and Orbital, they all that was very approachable to me. They heavily use samples, and I thought that was the coolest thing in the world. And especially the Orb, they like to layer a lot of sounds and create sort of an architecture or an atmosphere. And I mean, I'm not saying it means anything or there's any kind of interpretation you can take out of it, but it just sounded really cool, especially when you got high. So on weed. So yeah, so that's sort of how I got into electronic music, and everything came from the Orb. Carlos, he worked with a lot of music before. I think he's pretty good on the keyboard. Um, he had a lot of experience with these raves and a lot of the music that was going on. So I still look up to him, and I always will. He really helped cultivate the appreciation I have for electronic music. So when I met him, that's when the two of us. So I failed out of Pace University because I partied way too much. That's where I met Carlos, and we've been friends. We're still friends, and so after I failed out of Pace, I would still come to hang out with him. He lived in the Bronx, and I would lug my computer over there and my monitor. Back then, monitors were super heavy, and I would lug all my. He'd have a mixer and his computer and monitor. I'd have my computer and monitor, and then we'd probably have like a third item, and we would record to cassette tape, and we were just trying to imitate the Orb. In fact, at first we would just take the Orb's the song. I think it's called the. It's a really long song title. The something beyond the center of the ultra world, and but they had the mini Ribbleton "Loving You" uh, uh, sampled in that song heavily, and that was one of our favorites. So we would basically take various remixes of that song and just live and record it to a cassette. Uh, that song playing and fade in and out parts of the song to like come up with a new creation of "Loving You," and that's kind of how we got started.
That's so cool. Especially the. Do you have any of the old tape recordings, or have they all
We
kind of converted to digital at this point?
So yeah, I still have a shoebox full of cassette tapes and mini discs. So mini discs became pretty big, I think. Well, not they were never big, but they came out around I don't know late '90s. I guess we started using them, and fortunately, well, I wish we had DAT tapes. We couldn't afford that stuff, but um, fortunately, we had mini discs. So a lot of our stuff. Unfortunately, we don't have the "Loving You" stuff, but a lot of our stuff since then had been dumped to mini disc, which is it's digital, but it's still compressed to fit on the size of a very small CD. But the quality is fairly good, and we've been able to recover a lot of that stuff and record it into a WAV file on the computer. And now, if we wanted to, we could really start to mess around with it, but most of the way we would approach making music wasn't ever let's make a song. It was okay, let's just jam. So we'd connect the stuff together. We would record the entire night for like 3 hours, and we would just play lots and lots of noises, and then we would listen back for days to it. And then sometimes we would, occasionally, sometimes we would find, anywhere from 3 to 15 minutes of material that wasn't too bad. And so we would just clip that out and then call it a song. And that's basically how God's Slot Machine was born.
That's great. I love the improvisational aspect of it, and then the curation after the fact of um, putting together all this stuff and then cutting out what works and what doesn't.
Yep.
But it kind of reminds me. I'm sure this analogy has been made before but just kind of improvisational music and painting and art like that, where I mean in some aspects of painting and drawing you have a very set plan of which you can approach music that way too, of just like, this is the structure of the face, this is the structure of the nose, but the more kind of abstract expressionism and just improvising and then building on those improvisations.
It's funny you mention that, because I do actually have an art background in college. After I went to Pace and failed out accounting, I studied accounting, which was a terrible thing. It's what my dad did. So I failed out, and now I'm at a state school, a state college, Rampo College, and I decided I'm going to become a graphic designer, even though I never ever considered myself to be an artist. This all happened around the same time that music popped up, and the music that I would make, again, because I had no history, I felt samples and using computer software, which is all I had, kind of led to my weakness of not having any training. And in the same way, I think about art. So I had to take art classes in college, and I'll tell you, out of all the classes, PACE included, the art classes were the toughest, because although I failed out of PACE, it's because I really didn't try. If I just went to class, I could usually pass a class by coasting. Art classes are the only classes I found in college that I could not coast through. If you needed to put in 12 hours of work and I put in 2, which was normally my approach to most college things, you could tell immediately. And you could tell the people who put in 12 hours, and you could tell the people who put in 24. And so the art I started to focus on at that time was abstract art, especially in America after 1940, where you had Jasper Johns and Clifford Stills, I think that's his name, right? So that I related to, because I felt it was so, even Dada art, and I felt it was so approachable for me, especially since I couldn't really paint. And I loved it because, what am I, 19 years old? I'm still a teenager, truly. I was for a long time, and when I learned about this art, I learned that it was a reactionary and it was anti-establishment, and these are cool things to someone who's young and impressionable. So I love studying that stuff in college, and so I relate to what you're talking about with the expressionist art, abstract expressionist art. I think it's definitely my favorite and the one I'm most knowledgeable about because of those classes.
That's awesome. I didn't know about your visual art background as well. That's awesome. Do you still do
Yeah.
any kind of painting or design stuff too?
No, I don't. I took graphic design as a shortcut. At the time in college, there weren't a lot of classes for web design. I felt I wanted to be a web designer. I graduated in '99, right before the dot-com bubble burst, and the problem was I was never confident enough in my design skills, and even when I did something, they were just kind of technically and boring, never risky. But part of that had to do with the technical aspects that I learned. So my affinity with computers is much greater, and especially when it came to coding. And I found it easier for me to make the websites than it was to design them. And so I kind of, at the time, I went more into a programming role. And the title I kind of had at that point, this was 2000, was I forget, design architect. I was a liaison between the heavy programmers and the designers, and I had to kind of make them work together. It was tough, but that only lasted a year because by 2001 I had quit, and I started to work for a law firm just to make some money as an IT person, and sadly, that's been my career since. It's been rewarding financially, but creatively, it's been a burden up until COVID, which is when I started to feel the itch again to work on some things.
Yeah. So we talked about music, talked about visual art. Where did you kind of get your start with comedy?
Yep, that was right around COVID. So, without really having, not feeling confident in any other area, and a long time has passed. Comedy again. I like music, so who doesn't like comedy? Comedy is great. I find it easier to when I meet new people, and it's a bad habit of mine, but I tend to try to be funny just to make myself at ease, perhaps, and make people laugh. It's just something I've done
Yeah.
my whole life, and yeah, right or wrong. But I it's
definitely. True. Yeah, that's very relatable because I feel like I do the same thing, especially with meeting new people, and it's one. Just a way to relate to people if you can make them laugh, but then two, it's like I'm trying to make myself laugh too, so it's making jokes and making comments on I don't know, it's
one of
I don't
my
know if it's just like inherently human or if certain people are drawn to it more.
When I was a funny side note, when I was dating my now wife, and I had to meet her sister and her sister's boyfriend. We went to Olive Garden, and as my sister and her boyfriend at the time, they were sitting down already. So my wife and I are walking in, and just as we walk, by the way, I'm so nervous because I'm dating this beautiful woman, and I'm about to sit down with her family. That's nerve-wracking. So a woman walks by crying. And the waitress is chasing her out, and I overhear, like, I saw my husband. The woman saw her husband with another person at the restaurant. She had come there, saw the husband, and ran out crying. And of course, many people saw this, including Wendy's sister and her boyfriend. So I'm still so nervous, and the first thing I say is I sit down. Olive Garden. When you're here, you see your family. And it just kind of goes to show you, like, I'll pick up on any, like, what a terrible thing for that woman to experience. And then I make a little joke about it, and I guess it goes to show you where my mind goes. It can be a little dark with comedy, but all my life. But as a high school kid. Before college, I was into filmmaking. I never had a camcorder. Our family, they were very expensive, didn't have it, but a friend did. We would make so many skits on the camera. They were legendary to all of us in high school. Of course, they're probably all gone now, but that's where we started to make a lot of films, bits, and there are countless.
If you roll on to your town, if you roll on to your town, You can roll to your town. It's chocolate covered caramel. Covered caramel. Covered caramel. Covered caramel. You can roll to your town. It's chocolate covered caramel. 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 You can roll to your town. It's chocolate covered caramel. You can roll to your town. It's chocolate covered caramel. And right here, you like to touch it. You can roll to your town. It's chocolate covered caramel. Caramel. It's chocolate covered caramel. You can roll to your town. It's chocolate covered caramel. It's chocolate covered caramel. It's chocolate covered caramel. It's chocolate covered caramel. 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 Caramel.
I guess that leads perfectly into Zark TV. So you have this relationship with comedy going all the way back to high school. You said you were making skit and stuff.
Yeah. I stopped after high school, but resumed. Yeah, in my typical fashion. I wait 20 years and reset. Yeah.
So for the uninitiated, what is Zark TV?
Okay, so it's just a silly show, and the format is little tiny bits. It pretends to be a network television station. So UHF is kind of an inspiration in many ways. And it pretends to be a silly television station, a network, and there are little bits that go through. One of my favorite moves is to make a bit that doesn't end and the channel changes. And when the channel changes, there's a brief moment of static, and then something else happens. And it's really for the short attention span society we live in today, where everything is trickled down to 60 seconds or less and put on TikTok or Twitter. Mm-hmm. And so it's really hard to get the attention span of anyone for 30 or 60 minutes. Maybe your friend would like to watch a show, but the moment she finds out it's 30 minutes long, she's lost. She's lost. But if you just send her a 60-second thing and she likes it, she'll seek out others. So, and I'm not the first to realize this, of course, but we like that format, and it gives us a lot of creativity to just make something very funny and silly. And so all these bits are surrounded by a story that takes place over a season. And this season we're doing 8 episodes. We have 2 left. And so the story itself in between the bits, it's supposed to be funny too, and hopefully people find it funny.
So 2 of my favorite bits on it that you do, one is Bass Boys, which I kind of interpret as like a funny parody of masculinity in relationship with nature. And the first one I saw was that like I think you were going camping or something, you're like, hey, this is my first episode of Bass Boys, and it's just you going fishing, and that's just the video. And
Bass Boys.
Hey guys, Keith Michael here, and I am ready for some bass fishing. I have my lure, my weight, and my rod all set to go. This is a pilot episode of Bass Boys. The show is about middle-aged men who reclaim their manhood through fishing for the first time. And I am all set. I'm here in the Poconos at the lake house of my wife's family, and there's a lot of fishing equipment here, and I figured this is a great place to kind of figure out what it's like to be a man and be a fisherman all at the same time. And as you can see, my rod is ready. It's a perfect cast. Nothing yet. But as you can see, I'm a master fisherman. I do know how to use these antiques. Look at that cast. Think I got something. Oh, he got away. Anyway, thank you for tuning in.
I don't know how to put it in a word other than it's just like, I don't know, it's this funny thing of just we have this kind of feeling towards nature and wilderness, and then there's just some comedic gold about like us trying to reclaim it. And I saw a meme today that I actually sent to one of our Twitter group chats of that, it just because it reminded me so much of Bass Boys. Though it's like, podcast, I'd rather be casting my line. And that just like reminds me so much of Bass Boys.
One of the funny things about shooting that was first, it was from last summer. I was making a joke. I didn't do anything with it, and but someone had reminded me I made it. So I found it took a long time. I found the footage, and I recalled a bunch of things. So one of the jokes I like to say, like this. So remember, it's about a man like having his masculinity, and one of the first things I say is like, "This is my wife's father's house," So I'm there, and I'm like raiding his fishing area, and I pick up this pole, and I look at it. I'm like, this pole's in my mind, off the camera. I'm like, this pole's really short. I'm like, I don't know, maybe it's a kid's pole, but I find it funny to use this short pole. I find out well after recording, no, Keith, that's an ice fishing pole, and you're using it in May, out in June, and I thought that was really.
Yeah, there's all these jokes that I didn't even pick up on since I'm not a fisher.
And same here. I first of all, I fished as a kid in the Boy Scouts. All I ever caught was I think I don't know what you call them out here. They're not. Sunfish. We call them out here sunfish. They're you throw them back. And whenever I caught, first of all, I didn't like putting the worm on the hook. It's you hear a squish. It's just I don't I don't like harming things intentionally. I feel like I'm harming a worm intentionally doing that. And then whenever you get the fish, all I wonder about, like if you throw it back, like how did you mess up his mouth? Like is he gonna like gobble up like food in the pond forever just in pain in slight pain? And I don't care what Kurt Cobain said, a fish, they probably feel pain. So I wouldn't even know what to do if I accidentally caught a fish. I mean, I would, I know how to take the hook out and all that, but I wouldn't know how to eat it. I would just have to throw it back. So it just seems like a silly hobby to me.
Yeah,
I don't
definitely.
know. I could drink beer anywhere. I don't need to be fishing with you.
Yeah, I like it in Animal Crossing, and I have like one very good memory of fishing that turned into like I remember in Boy Scout camp fishing and enjoying it, never really catching much. And but yeah, it's the being out in nature. And then I remember going fishing with my uncle, and it was such like a great time. It was so wonderful
Yeah.
outside and on the boat. And then but I remember like he just wanted to throw back the fish, and I was like, oh no, we should keep them because we should eat them, like. And so I convinced them that we should keep the fish to eat. But I was a little kid and I didn't know all that went into it. So then when we got back to my grandpa's house, then is like, oh, we kept these fish. Like, well, you kept it. Like, we're gonna have to clean it to eat it. And I just remember him like cleaning the fish like in front of me outside, and just being like horrified that like after the head was cut off, the gill is like still moving and just
Yeah.
it should have
bringing back memories. I have the same ones. Yeah. And I think I've tasted it now that I'm going back. I've had it, and it they fried it, and it was gross.
Yeah,
I would rather eat acorns.
I could not eat that particular fish. Like I do, maybe I should become a vegan at some point. I do still partake in meat and fish and have that kind of cognitive dissonance. And like separation from like I'm not the butcher of it, but I do wonder if there is that, because I think is it Michael Pollan who wrote Omnivore's Dilemma? I think it's Michael Pollan.
Jungle.
Oh yeah, so Omnivore's Dilemma goes through it's all about the food industry. It's like a more modern book, but there's one chapter of it where he talks about like killing and eating his own like food, because he goes through all these different kind of experiences with food in the industry, and talks about there's this like weird spiritual aspect to it, and he was like, I probably would never do it again, but like I don't know if it's a boar or like a wild hog or something.
I couldn't do that.
Yeah, I don't think I have it in me too.
It's my dog attacked a chipmunk just 2 weeks ago, and I don't want to describe it, but it lived, and I had to, but it was fatally wounded, and I had to terminate it, and it was upsetting. It's just upsetting. It's just a little chipmunk, but I didn't like it. So let's talk about happy stuff again.
All right, going on to happy stuff. The other skit, one bit I really enjoy is the hunting numbers, and the kind of, so it's a like a kind of fake podcast about, it's a call-in show?
It was a podcast. The last episode, I pretend to take calls. It's so at that point, it's still not a live call-in show. I think that was part of me, being funny. Nobody called in live. I kept playing a sound that people were pranking me. I do have an interview with someone, and I've had it in my pocket now for several months. I just have to finish writing the 6th episode. But it's a.
Well, it's so funny because it's like you're trying to come up with this the right number, and you have this whole cosmology behind numbers, and it reminds me of the people who like I keep seeing 777 everywhere. Like I paid for something, and after tax it was $7.77. This must be an angel number. My spirit guides are trying to talk to me. But
yes.
You take it to this like kind of ridiculous extreme, of being like, there are some numbers that are angel numbers and some numbers that are demon numbers, and
Yeah.
just seeing what's a good number and a bad number. But then also the bit, and I've not heard you describe it this way, of like you're trying to like put the listener under every time, because it's just like,
So that was a funny bit I wrote. For a long time, I actually listened to these deep sleep um, meditation things, to help me fall asleep easy.
mhm.
And I mean, it works. Um, so while you have to understand that I write outlines on the shows, but that's about 40 or 50% of it. A lot of it is improv. So as I'm going through it, and that's really the only thing I'm good at. My writing, I don't like to write too much. I like to just write enough and then improv the rest. So that suddenly came to me after I asked people to subscribe, for $10,000 a month. I say, and it came to me. I'm like, let me try to put them under. So that was my best attempt at recalling how to put someone under. Basically, I was listening to those tapes, and if I took it seriously, I think I could actually put people under, because I would just basically say the same thing that the tapes had said. I have it almost committed to memory, but yeah, that was a bit. And then I think I said, give me $1 a month when I put people under, and I still have not made $1 yet, so I don't think I'm very successful.
Yeah, I do wonder about that too, because I've used those, falling asleep, deep sleep money meditation. Like, it's gonna put you to
Yeah,
sleep,
you're gonna
and
wake up rich
it's
and a foot
the
taller.
power of the
Yeah.
secret. You're gonna wake up and be able to amass great amounts of wealth. But I do wonder if it is almost like this form of hypnotism, where they are putting you under, or in that like hypnagogic state in between sleep and dream. If there's some sort of nefarious, like, you must subscribe to my YouTube channel. Like,
Well, and
yeah.
there could be, and that concerned me. I had talked to an aunt who suggested that, actually, and so I did listen to the 20. It's only a 20-minute thing, that I was using.
Mhm.
I listened fully, so I recorded it and I listened to it fully awake and intentionally. There's nothing going on. It's just basically saying, they're not using any kind of technology. They're just layering over nice things like, you will get a good sleep, you will have a pleasant dream, you will wake up fully refreshed, and it's like 4 different voices all at once. By that time you're already asleep.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
I don't listen to
That's
them anymore.
good. That
Yeah.
particular one that didn't
Oh,
have,
that
yeah.
one I had. Yeah.
If you did make a longer episode of, or I guess I could put all the episodes together of hunting numbers and use it to fall asleep, because it'd be nice to have you kind of be my narrator and to sleep. I do use podcasts a lot, but then it's, even with comedy ones too, it's like occasionally you'll get a character who's yelling or something where doesn't quite wake you up, or you'll get in that half sleep. I've had that a lot happen, falling asleep to like Comedy Bang Bang or something, where you're kind of in that half sleep state, and you can definitely feel the podcast is kind of interfering with your dreams a little bit, and and sometimes it works.
It can
because
change
it's
it.
just,
Yeah.
the characters are so goofy, and then other times it's just like, I kind of wonder what my actual dreams would be if I didn't have that kind of input into it.
I stopped using. When I was younger, I had a TV in the bedroom, and TV would be on all night, and then I would listen to a deep sleep meditation thing or rain noise. The only thing I keep on now is brown noise in the bedroom. It helps. It helps me go to sleep easier if I wake up in the middle of the night. But I stopped putting things on because I do feel that all of that, I'm not a scientist, but all of that really will disrupt. And I found the dream thing you're talking about like when the TV was on, I'm half dreaming, half awake,
Yeah.
and the TV just kind of, what I would hear on the TV, it would just kind of mess around. I don't know. I'm at the age now where I want a fully peaceful sleep. I don't want to mess around. So I just have noise.
Yeah, I should try brown noise because if I'm really having trouble to sleep, or because I can never put on like a podcast that I'm too interested in,
Right.
because then
It's
it'll
too
draw
interesting.
me in. And
Yeah.
rain sound too, if especially if there's something noisy that's interfering with me sleeping, or if I'm just like really have insomnia, I'll put on like heavy rain sounds. But I should try brown noise. I do think the best is when I don't need anything, but I'll use the timer on podcasts too, helps a lot, because then it's like I know it'll shut off after 15 or 30
Yeah, but then I
minutes.
would wake up. Yeah, and that's the other warning I'm going to give you now with the brown noise. It's great. It's rare the power goes out in the middle of the night, and I have battery backups on some things, but the speaker that plays brown noise, there's no battery backup. So when the power goes out, let me tell you something. That brown noise goes out, no matter what time, you're waking right up. Somehow your brain knows that it's suddenly
Yeah.
silent in the room, and you will wake up. Anyway, that's kind of cool, I guess.
That's really interesting. You could almost set it as an alarm clock of you could just time it for when you want to wake up.
Yeah,
Instead
just wake
of
right
a
up.
loud alarm, just the brown noise cuts out.
During my service in the United States Congress, I took the initiative and creating the internet. Creating the internet. Creating the internet. Internet.
I like to keep myself sparkling clean and fresh. Now, if you want all-day freshness, there's this concentrated cleaner called Blue. Just put Blue in the tank, then every time I flush, I get a free detergent rinse that helps clean and deodorize me for up to a month. The tablet dissolves so there's no dripping mess to remove, and my fingers don't get stained. I tell you, Blue makes me feel brand new. I like to keep myself sparkling clean.
So with Zark TV, with your music, with just kind of everything that you started doing creatively again since the pandemic, where do you kind of draw inspiration from? I know that's kind of a broad question.
Yeah, no, right. So most of my friends are actually responsible for that. And when I say friends, I'm talking about you and our friends, our mutual friends, the people I'm working with Zark at, uh, they are all similar in that they want to laugh. They want to, especially with the comedy stuff, they all want to laugh and have a good time. And I think a lot of all the inspiration I get is from like-minded people. It makes me want to create more. Making my friends laugh is something I like to do, and that's really it. And then of course there are some great TV shows out there. I love Tim Robinson's "I Think You Should Leave." That show is absolutely fantastic, and the new Kids in the Hall season, I've already devoured that one, so I'm going to watch it again. As a child, that was comedy to me. It was on HBO. They had bad words, and they were funny as hell. And um, to see them back again this year has been great.
Yeah, I haven't watched the new Kids in the Hall. I'll have to check that out. Um,
Definitely.
where do you see your kind of self? Where do you see yourself going next with music? You said Zark TV's season 1 is about to finish up. What's kind of the plan for season 2 and beyond?
Sure. So season 1, yeah, we have our 7th episode. We'll be recording this week. It'll play next week, I believe, on the 13th. So we'll be wrapping that up after 8 episodes. We'll probably take a few months off to record some more material and brainstorm ways to improve it, and come back. There's always another season to make, so look forward to that. Musically, I've been kind of stagnant. I need to figure out new ways to use the software I have. I have a lot of software. Most of it I don't know how to use, and I'm still stuck in a lot of my old process, which is ancient. And there's some new things I need to learn in order to focus and work with music, but hopefully I'll be able to do that soon.
Anything you want to plug? Obviously, Zark TV, Localhost Not Found, 1+1. Anything else you want to leave and all the links will be in the show notes as well. Anything else you want to leave the viewers with?
No, that's it. Thank you so much. Sid, you have you're really helped inspire a lot of the stuff I've been working on. It's great knowing you, and I really enjoy working with you on projects. So thanks so much for this opportunity. It's fantastic. It's always fun to talk about a song I made 20 years ago.
Yeah. Well, go through those tapes and you'll find another song and
Hopefully.
digitize it, and we'll have you on again soon.
All right, cool. All right, adios.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3. I can hear it, I can touch it, I'm finally free. 'Cause it's my time, to stop to me. 'Cause it's my time.